Sam is a fellow Sasson alumni. I'm also alumni. And Sam was EMBA 2006. So Sam is CEO and co-founder of STYLHUNT, and it's a Thai e-commerce startup that was accepted into the JFDI, which is the Asia's #1 startup accelerator. He was one of less than 4% from global applicants that was accepted into the accelerator. He previously co-founded Groupon Thailand, managed a $100 million product line, US million product line in Silicon Valley, and won the Global Sales Director Award at Lyrico. And so today, Sam's going to talk about his journey through the accelerator. And so we have about, 40 minutes? Talk about 40 minutes, and then we have Q&A. And then tonight we're going to pamper you with pizza and chicken wings. Okay. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Sam.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. Good evening. I actually did a pitch on the previous event, but this time my mission is not to sell or to pitch what I'm doing. I genuinely want to share some experience that may be helpful to you either directly or indirectly. So in the case of it being direct, is if any of you happen to be doing a startup or are thinking of doing a startup, this could be valuable information. And even if you are not, Thailand is now becoming quickly a prolific place for startups. The ecosystem has developed extremely rapidly. Just about 2 years ago, a lot of the activity that we have now in terms of accelerators, incubators, competitions in Thailand didn't exist. And I'm just blown away by the amount of people, the number of people who show up to various events in this ecosystem. So for you, if you should happen to come across anyone who's interested in this topic, this could be useful to them. It's quite interesting, and it's still relatively hard to get this sort of experience, this direct first-hand experience. So first, for context, just so you know, because basically what I'm going to do is sort of tell you the story of how we ended up going through this accelerator. So to give context, I do need to be a little bit narcissistic and tell you where I came from and how I got into this. So my educational background was UC Berkeley. I did electrical engineering and computer science. And then after moving to Thailand about 12 years ago, I attended Sasson, so EMBA 2006. So in terms of career, my first job was at a company called Maxim Integrated Products. It's a manufacturer and designer of semiconductors, so chips, electronic chips. These go into more than half of the notebook computers in the world, into a huge number of the cell phones, satellites, automotive equipment, industrial equipment. Tens of thousands of customers around the world use Maxim. You use the chips right now, but you don't know it because they're deeply embedded in there. So Maxim was a NASDAQ 100 company, and I was an engineer. And then later I became what we called a business manager. So I had P&L responsibility. I did strategic marketing for a $100 million product line, and then I did entrepreneurship. So I started up product lines from scratch and then introduced more than 20 products into the world. I flew around the world visiting companies like Nokia, Siemens, Ericsson, Canon, Dell, etc., to come up with business plans for products to target these markets. And then I'd go back and pitch them to my CEO, and we would launch them into the world. Eventually, as I was with Maxim for about 17 years, somewhere in the middle of that I moved to Thailand. And I shifted gears because Thailand was a manufacturing-focused operation. Shifted into HR management, engineering management, and then HR management. And then I moved to a company called Silicon Craft, which is Thailand's first and only company that does IC design. Because most technology in Thailand is manufacturing-focused. But this is a company that was actually able to design chips for analog and mixed signal, particularly the RFID world. So things like your card keys, or ignition, basically keys for your car when you can open the door remotely, or even the tags on cows and sheep. These all use RFID technology. Thailand's actually, or Silicon Craft is excellent in this technology and competitive with some top players. So I was head of sales, global sales and marketing for this. Then I co-founded Groupon Thailand. I was a sales director, and we started with about 8 people in a cafe or a coffee shop. Then we grew rapidly in about 6 months to about 50 people. And we went from no position in the market with about 20 to 30 players, with Insogo entrenched at the #1. We rapidly moved up within about 6 months to #2. And then lastly, I did something completely different from all the above. I joined a company called Lyrico. It's a French company, multinational, 27 countries, and it's B2B office supplies. And I ran the national field sales force for Thailand, so about 50 people running around Greater Bangkok, selling primarily to SMEs and a few larger companies, office supplies. It's actually probably the best job, though. I enjoyed it the most in terms of managing people. So this is my background. So I had a lot of operating experience. Right? Now what happened was these 3 gentlemen in the bottom, they were quite young. They're still quite young. They graduated from Lat Krabang. And shortly after, they became eBay power sellers. What that means is they sold things on eBay, and they made enough money to be in this special ranking called a power seller. Specifically, what they did was they used a model called drop shipping. So they would market products on eBay to customers in America and Australia. And when they got an order, they would fulfill that order by contacting the supplier, I think mostly through Alibaba, in China. And so the supplier would simply ship the product directly to the end customer. It wouldn't have to go through these guys. They didn't have to have any inventory risk. They just made money essentially by marketing on eBay, and even in a language that was quite foreign to them. So they made a lot of money from this at an early stage of e-commerce in Thailand. They quickly, through this process, were very inspired, and they saw opportunities for e-commerce development in Thailand. So this is how it all started. It's really from them. Along the way, they came up with an idea to do sort of a marketplace between resellers and suppliers. This was the original idea. It's kind of an Alibaba. And they went and recruited another friend of theirs who had about 5 years of coding experience. That's the guy in the upper right. And then they came and found me. One of their friends happened to interview with me at Groupon at the time. And we didn't hire him. I don't remember what happened. But one day they were all chatting with each other. And these guys in the bottom here asked, do you know anyone who might be able to help advise us or guide us or take us to investors? Preferably some old guy, you know? So he pulled out my business card, and he said, how about this guy? And I'm like, wow, great. So they gave me a call. We all sat down at a Japanese restaurant in the middle of Paragon, I think it was. Just imagine, it was more than these guys, too. There were a couple others. They're all sitting around a table, and they're trying to explain to me what they're doing, which at the time wasn't quite clear. But I saw 2 things. One, they had a genuine story based off of real experience. Right? This is something a lot of investors look for, is a real passion based on solving a real-world problem. It's not something just purely abstract or theoretical. And I saw that they really had something in their thought process and the way they communicated. They're a good team. And out of all the experience that I showed you before, the most important thing to me, a critical success factor in anything, is the team. It's all about your communication on a day-to-day basis and how you work things out, and egos and active listening and so forth. So I saw an opportunity, and we did what some people now call founder dating. So we basically would meet every once in a while. I agreed to help them out, and I eventually took them even to a local VC. So this was a process over many months, but it helped convince me that these guys are really, really good, and they're really onto something. And it was a hard decision, but at that time, at the end of last year, December 2014, I was at the peak of my career with Lyrico. I just won this award. Our subsidiary won highest growth in, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. Things were going really well. But I saw opportunity from these guys, 1, and 2, an opportunity in our ecosystem. Thailand, to me, and to many of us, is at an inflection point for the startup ecosystem. Things are advancing very rapidly. It reminds me of when I was in Silicon Valley many years ago, and it was starting to take off. So I think I made the right choice. So what happened? Sorry, let me go back for a second. What happened is, in January, I was full-time with them. And we were about to embark on the original plan. But the guys went and found something through Crunchbase. This is something worth writing down if you're not familiar with Crunchbase. So just go to crunchbase.com. This is a great directory to show you listings of various startups out there in the world, and you can see how much people have invested in them. Who are the investors? Who are the VCs? What did the companies do? Who the teams are? So Crunchbase. Anyway, they found this thing, and they saw that there were several companies and a business model that seemed to be getting a lot of traction and a lot of investment. Specifically, there were companies called Fancy, Polyvore, and Wanilo. Right? So I'm not going to get deep into that, but basically, it was these three companies had secured more than about $140 million in VC investment within a pretty short amount of time. And two of them were already cash flow positive. And it looked very interesting. It looked like a new trend to us. So we decided that we're going to adapt that model and localize it for Thailand. That was our pitch. So right around that time, these guys suggested that we enter a couple of incubator or accelerator competitions. One of those was JFDI. There was also True and Cube, and there are other ones in Thailand like DTAC Accelerate or AIS a Startup. Their motivation was the following. Because back at that time, I didn't even really know what this stuff was, these accelerators, and I wasn't convinced that that was a good thing. But their notion was that there was evidence that there were quite a few startups in Thailand that had secured funding from VCs because they had gone through these programs. So they really strongly suggested we try it. So I listened to them, and we submitted some applications, and we got into JFDI. So let me kind of step away from the story for a moment, and just in case, let's talk about these two terms, an accelerator and an incubator. You may or may not have heard of these terms before. What they basically are, just really simply put, is there are these programs where startups can work in a certain environment with some kind of guidance and typically with some level of investment, right? Now they've split into these two categories, accelerators and incubators. Incubators were more dominant in the past, and the big trend now is accelerators. The main difference is that in an incubator, you could kind of hang out there for an indefinite amount of time. Who knows? It could be years, all right? But an accelerator is quite specific. Think of it as a boot camp. You're going to be there like 90 days or 100 days. You'll receive mentorship. You'll receive training, receive advisors and networks. And then at the end of the whole thing, you typically have what's called a demo day. On this day, you don't necessarily demonstrate anything, but you pitch, typically a 6-minute pitch. And you do this in front of many investors, real investors, and your hope is to get someone interested, so you have a meeting afterwards, and eventually you raise money from them. Okay, so that's an accelerator. And there's this study from MIT, this was published in TechCrunch, and it was sort of talking about the difference between the two and the trade-offs. So a few highlights. Here I'll just kind of capture the gist of it. They're saying that an incubator has the negative effect of creating an environment that's too comfortable. You have no pressure to perform or deliver something. You could hang out there for years, right, and get very comfortable. But in an accelerator, you have a defined time period, you have hands-on mentoring, and uncompromising board meeting sessions that result in hard decisions being made sooner rather than later, and with no option to choose a comfortable state. What this means is when you get into one of these things, you're either going to succeed or you're going to fail. And failure is okay. I'm not sure if you've heard, it's quite a popular notion out in Silicon Valley in the general startup world. Failure is not bad, failure is not wrong. Just do it quickly. Right? Figure out if the thing's going to work or not. So the thing about these accelerators, that's the whole reason why they call it an accelerator. They're accelerating this process so you can figure out, Do you have a good idea? Do you have a good model, a good operation? So that if you do, then it takes off. And if you don't, you change, you pivot, you scrap it, whatever you have to do. This is a nice graphical representation of this idea. So this line in the middle is the one that's really scary, right? This line A. This is what happens or can happen in an incubator. You come up with an idea, you develop something, you launch it, and you sort of like hang around and hope that it works, but you just stay in limbo for a long and indefinite amount of time. That's not what you want to do. The accelerator, the whole purpose is to figure out, are you B or are you C? Are you going to take off or are you going to die? And even if you are going to die, by the way, sometimes that's not an end game right there. You can pivot, you can change, you can do something. But whatever you do, don't just kind of hang out in this A zone. All right? So this is, again, from MIT's research. So now I'm going to step back into the JFDI story. This is a little video clip that will give you a little more flavor of what is JFDI. Again, JFDI stands for Joyful Frog Digital Incubator. That's why there's this frog here. Oh, I'll turn it on. I think it's right. There we go. No. No, I don't want that. Yeah, it's in there. It was working before too.
The scale of the opportunity here is frankly staggering. The next billion internet users are going to come from this part of the world, and they're not going to be using a PC, they're going to be using a tablet or a mobile device.
The JFDI Bootcamp is an extraordinary experience that's bringing together about 40 or 50 entrepreneurs from around the world.
We're actually putting them through the paces of starting a company, and these guys are learning on the job how to be an entrepreneur.
Whether it is in Silicon Valley or whether it is in Singapore or whether it's in India, I am looking for a good entrepreneur with a good idea.
Once we have our card in the market, it will drive user to download our apps.
They have to be able to show traction, they have to show that, yes, we have an amazing idea, we're a great team, and we have executed.
We've selected these guys because they're passionate, they're fantastic communicators, and because they have a real desire to get their businesses to investment and into the hands of users all across the world in 100 days.
Find something you want to sell, snap, tag, and post. That's it.
We provide them with massive insights that actually allow them to see the impact that that brand has through social media.
I just compared 3 different destinations within 3 seconds. Try doing that on Expedia.
They've left friends and family behind, they've quit their jobs to come here and do this, and they're pursuing a dream. And that is exactly the same kind of passion that you would find anywhere else in the world, especially in Silicon Valley.
So, one of the things, or some of the things I wanted to share with you is what do you do inside of an accelerator, or what did we do? One of the key, or very, very critical components was coaching for pitching. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to sell. You do need to present. And especially for this sort of demographic, shall we say, a lot of folks are engineers or folks who have not had a lot of customer interaction. So learning how to pitch can be quite a daunting skill, but it's absolutely necessary. So at JFDI, we had this gentleman named Peter Brown. He's a professional actor and pitching coach. And we did pitches from the second day we were there. They brought in a room full, more than you guys, okay? It was like maybe double, if not more. A lot of them were big regional VCs. We had no preparation. They just said, okay. Yeah, they told us the day before. They said, get ready, you're going to pitch in front of all these people. And the media was there. So really scary, right? We went up and did these like 2-minute pitches. And that was just to kind of jar us into what we're doing and say, so this is what you're going to do, but you're going to do it right at the end of the 100 days or so. So after that, every week, intensive pitch practicing and coaching. It's really, really good. And he helped us in both in content and delivery. And they just happened to have an article that went out on the internet just the other day, and there were 5 things that he highlighted. And this is still not at all exhaustive, but 5 key things that he points to are connection, physical presence, expression, articulation, and preparation. I would really highlight the preparation, though. There's a heck of a lot more that goes into that than one might imagine. So this is also really important. Any of you who are already versed or experienced with operational experience, including a big multinational company, you know about the importance of having milestones, right? Having a schedule and KPIs, right? So that stuff doesn't stop just because you go into a startup. So what you do is these accelerators, or at least JFDI in particular, takes that kind of framework and makes sure that you apply it to the most important critical success factor for a startup. And what is that success factor? It's traction, right? What is traction? In an ideal world, traction is I have X amount of revenue growing at Y% monthly, right? Or profit growing at some rate. Because by the nature of startups, sometimes you don't have revenue yet. So traction may not be revenue. It might be user growth. How many users do you have? How many installs and downloads? How much retention do you have? How many people are coming back to your site? How much engagement? How much time are they spending per visit on your site? This kind of thing. But to do these things, you can't just be abstract. You can't just be rah-rah and like, just passionate about it. It's got to have some kind of framework. So at JFDI, we had weekly check-in meetings. And there's an entire structure. Like they told us at the very beginning, here's a whole funnel of customer development. So a set of activities that begins at the top, defining what you're going to do, what's your vision, figuring out who your potential target customer will be, actually talking to someone, building something called an MVP, a minimum viable product, okay, which is basically, because I don't want to get too much into the nitty-gritty of that yet, but in basic terms, it's kind of like a prototype. Okay? Confirming your channels, your sales funnel, confirming that you really are solving a real problem. Do you have a fit between the problem and the solution that you are creating? Right? Growth and revenues, LTV, CAC, meaning is the long-term value, the lifetime value of each customer that you acquire, is that greater than the cost of acquiring each customer? So if you are my potential customer, do I have to pay $10 for you to come and be my customer? Because that's how much I pay for you to see my ad and for you to download the app. But then over the lifetime of your usage of my app, will you spend more than $10? A lot more than $10. That's what LTV greater than CAC means. Sales plan, the pitch, executive summary, etc. So this is only a partial list, but this is really, really disciplined. And they made it super clear. They said, you've got to do these things, and every week they sit down and have you report, where are you on these things? So all of you can recognize, I'm sure, this sort of mentality from any kind of operation, whether it's multinational or a startup. So another dimension is the actual knowledge, skills, and tools that we learn from this program. I've got this list. This is still actually a partial list, but I've highlighted in red some of my favorites, or the ones that were critical for our team. Customer development interviews. Now, if some of you have an MBA type of background, right, you'll know things like market research, right? Focus groups, surveys, interviews. So I had that too. In fact, I used that back in Silicon Valley for the companies I worked for. But there's something different here. There's something more. It's not just that market research work. When you're doing something really innovative, there's a specific set of approaches for talking to a customer to determine if what you will do is going to work. You can't use the same old method. What am I talking about? Well, one way to describe it is you can think of this quote from Steve Jobs, I think it was. He basically says, you can't ask a customer what they want. They don't really know. They can't tell you about something they've never experienced before. So if I asked you, to describe an iPad 20 years before an iPad existed, you might not be able to do that. It's something kind of beyond your daily existence. Henry Ford is often quoted as well as saying, if he had asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Right? So that wouldn't have really been very helpful for him. So customer development interviews, and just to give you a very quick taste of that, and to contrast it with what you may be used to in a regular corporate setting. So let's say even back for semiconductors when I was doing market research, I might ask about what a customer would want. I'd say, if we built this for you, would it be okay? How much would you pay for it? This sort of thing. The principle here is you can't ask that kind of question. And what you need to do is you really need to zoom in on their current behavior, and really sharply. You need to understand exactly what they're doing right now. And then you need to step away from that and map for yourself what may or may not work. You can't put in hypotheticals. One of the reasons is if you ask them, if I ask you, if I build this thing for you, will you pay $20 for it? I can't rely on that answer being accurate, because you're just sort of guessing. It's not very real to you. So again, I'm just trying to paint a slight picture here. There's a way and a technique of doing customer development for you to help understand these things. Another thing is usability testing. This is just magical. There's a book called Rocket Surgery Made Easy. And so the folks at JFDI guided us to go read it. We read it. It's just amazing. And the real principle here is if you build something, the big danger for all of us is we just think on our own, oh, this is cool. This would work for me. I like it. I see the benefit. You just can't do that. What you have to do is you build things, or even prototypes or mock-ups, and you have to watch someone interact with them. You have to see how someone works with your product. Okay, and it's just amazing because we've done this. We've done it since the beginning. And you just cannot imagine how wild and wacky and how different people's reaction can be from what you expect. So down to the simplest things. So we had this app or this website, and we have a button, and it says this thing. You think it's really simple. You talk to someone. You watch. Do they click it? Do they not click it? You ask, well, why did you not click it? Oh, because it says this, and that means this to me. And you're just like, what? You never would have guessed that to be the case. So there's all these assumptions that happen. And so there's a technique to actually seeing how people interact with the real live product. It's just absolutely priceless. It happens, like, we do this almost daily. There's also technologies in this that you can use. They taught us how to use tools like something called mouse flow. So imagine I can actually watch the equivalent of a video recording of you coming and playing and using my website. I can see the actual movements of the mouse when you come in, see where you click, where you don't click, what you scroll down to. And from this information, I can determine, whoa, you're confused here. You don't know what the heck this is, right? Or you didn't even go over here. Or there's a bug over here, and we didn't even realize it. Because of this technique, we were able to launch some features, and within as quick as 3 hours, catch it and fix it. right? That's just amazing. I mean, you can't do that in our regular old world sort of model of business. Imagine making a, I don't know, a Toyota Camry, right? You put it out there, you find out that there's some bug, and then you're going to go back and fix it. That's not so quick and easy, but thanks to the internet and the way these things work, you can do that really quickly. So some other highlights are financial and legal concepts for incorporation in Singapore. This in itself is a whole other topic. The idea is to incorporate in Singapore can be beneficial because regulatory issues and just the ease of doing business makes it so that it could be better to start your company there. There's just some hurdles here locally that may make it less attractive for some investors. I wonder to what extent that's still true today, but that's the basic notion. That was actually a requirement for JFDI too, for us to go into the program. We had to incorporate there. So the rest I'm not going to keep reading, but just sort of, this gives you a taste of the kinds of actual skills and information that you get from the program. Now, another huge thing. This reminds me of going to SASIN, right? Because one of the great things about SASIN is the network and the community of people. It's absolutely amazing resources that you have here, right? From the professors to your fellow students to the alumni. So, same thing with something like JFDI. The people in this ecosystem represent more than $1 billion of assets for investment. This is just a small sample of some of the people that, this is not just like some kind of marketing kind of thing. Each of the people on this slide, like, we had one-on-one conversations and met with them one-on-one, and they helped advise us and looked at our startup. That's really hard to do. If I ran around and tried to get this mentorship on my own, it would have taken months. Even for just the best salesperson, it's not easy to get time with these people. So some of these people are Jeffrey Payne and Vinny Loria. This is one of the biggest VCs in our region, Golden Gate Ventures. This is huge. Singtel Innovate, he spoke in the video. So CEO for basically the VC arm, the investment arm of Singtel in Singapore. We sat down with him in a room a couple times. Hyun Go, co-founder of Asian Food Channel. We're still talking to him. He's still helping us out. Reza Benham. One day I was looking at discussing our site, and we were talking about possibly doing affiliate or digital advertising revenue model. And I asked Hugh, the guy with the tie and suit, said, how can we talk to someone who really knows digital marketing? Who is there that you know? He said, this guy. He's CEO, founder of like one of the best, most successful digital marketing companies in the region. So he said, he walks over to the cafe, because they have a coffee shop in JFDI, and he talks to the barista, and I'm a little confused, right? He says, next time Reza comes in, go get Sam. And this happened like 2 days later, because people like these people come in to JFDI like every couple of days. It's totally a hub for this ecosystem. So they connected me, we had an exclusive meeting, he let me talk to his team. That just would be so hard for someone to do, and especially here being, let's say, based in Thailand, really, really difficult. Roger Egan from Redmart, Stephen Goh, founder of MiG33, another VC from Monks Hill. Okay? And again, this is just a fraction. If I showed you, it would be so many slides if I showed you all the people that I met through this thing. Now this is important too. To me, from a practical point of view, this is one of the biggest questions that I had for going into any kind of accelerator or any kind of program, right? I was really skeptical. It's like, if we go join something, are they actually going to help us meet investors, or is this some BS thing, Like they're sort of just tricking us to go do this thing, but we have to go find investors, right? Because that's something I figured I would have to do anyway. I'd have to go find investors. But so are they going to help? Well, at our demo day, we had about 120 investors in our audience. And this is just a sample, again, not even all of them. In total, I've met, I'd say, probably 25 or 30, right? But this is just a selection of a sample of the investors that we've met because of this program. this is really, really hard to do. Just getting a meeting with a VC is super hard to do. You can't just send them an email. You can't, just submit an application form. They get so many application forms. And a lot of it is based on some sort of social currency or credibility. The ultimate way is that someone they know that they trust recommends you. So it's referrals. It's so hard. So this really was like a turbo boost for us. By doing the program, at the end of that demo day, I had a stack of business cards. VCs lined up at our booth, and we were able to have these meetings. And once you have that connection, I mean, I can go back to them very, very easily. That's just worth so much right there. Another benefit was we actually got some of our board of advisors from this thing. So some of the mentors, specifically Christine Ng and Michael Smith, also known as Smitty. So Christine, just so in case you don't know, StyleHunt is a fashion and beauty products sort of targeted application. So Christine Ng is quite appropriate. She's currently Director of Special Projects at Singtel, and she was the Chief Marketing Officer of Luxola. Luxola is highly successful. I think it's the most successful online cosmetics e-commerce site in our region. They've got some massive funding. So because of our interaction, she's actually become one of our advisory board members. Michael Smith, or Smitty, was formerly Director of Global Tech Initiatives at Yahoo, and right now he's the Chief Product Officer at a company called Spool. They do video for Bollywood films. So their app's pretty slick. If you happen to like Bollywood films, you can go and it's like a super slick YouTube for movies and TV shows for Indian content. Right? Okay, so what I wanted to do is sort of step back one more time and I tried to pick some of the key bullet points. What can one get from a good accelerator program? All right, so again, think back, either if you are an entrepreneur, you're thinking of becoming one, or you may one day bump into someone who's still new to this whole thing, you can at least say with some authority, hey, there's this thing you might want to check out. It can give you these kinds of benefits, right? So for us, from what I see, one, you can get seed investment, so there's the money. So they do invest in you, right? JFDI invested 25,000 Singaporean dollars for us. VC introductions. Traction acceleration. They're going to help make sure that in that 90 days or 100 days, think of that line that goes down or up, they're going to help make sure that happens. Pitch training. Really, really, really important. Mentor and peer network, from which, in part, you can get your board of advisors. Press and media coverage. Hugh Mason, the guy that you saw in there, is like a major media guy. When we went there, we had so many people from the press there all the time. And he gave us a whole spreadsheet. Like I could call a ton of people, especially from the Singapore area and the region, in almost any major media channel. Right? Part of that also was introductions to anything I needed. If we needed to talk to someone from a certain company, these guys had the credibility and the channel to be able to make an email introduction and get us to talk to them, even people outside of the JFDI network, because they had so much, again, credibility. Startup skills and tools, and then again, the incorporation. All right? So I have to say, and kind of as a disclaimer, I'm not selling JFDI. I don't get a commission. I'm not, like, seriously, they didn't ask me to do this. It's kind of weird. Like, I'm really doing this out of just a genuine, this is a sincere thing, because it's a big mystery and black box. I didn't know all this stuff back in January. And if someone like myself had told me that, that would have come in handy. I mean, fortunately, I still benefited from it, but I would like more people to know about this. And even if it's not for JFDI, it's just this whole concept of accelerators, because Thailand has started embarking on this. So again, all the telecom players have their own version. True and Cube, DTAC Accelerate, AIS Startup. There is a sort of a proviso here is those are parts of telecom companies, so they're sort of strategic investments. So realize that the objectives of a strategic or telecom investor maybe are different from something like this. Good or bad, that's for you to figure out, and you have to look at how it compares to your own objectives, but be aware of that. And then there are accelerators right here, like last week or last month, Douglas Abrams talked, right? So he has a VC, Expara, but he also has an accelerator called I4X. I'm actually the pitching coach for him. I'm kind of helping him out. But that's something brand new. They just launched that, and they have their first batch going on right now. Demo day will be in December, right? So so there's that. And then there is Startup Nation with Ann Cheng from Singapore that now has an operation in Thailand. See, all these things didn't exist just not that long ago. So just in case, I'm more than happy to help. If you'd like to contact me, or you're welcome to give my contact to other people. But if they'd like to know more about this kind of stuff, trade notes, very, very happy to help out. One of the great things about the startup ecosystem, even globally, is this ethos of openness and helping each other out. It's really something it's different from kind of the old school way. In the past, it'd be everything's secret, watch out, ask for an NDA, people are going to copy you, don't talk to other people. Now it's more like share, trade notes, don't worry about it. I really get it now. I used to think that other way, and now I laugh when someone asks, well, if I tell someone, they might copy me, right? I'm like, go for it, because it's hard. Like, you have no idea. You can't just take the idea and do it. For you to really copy my idea, you're going to have to work so hard. It's like really, really hard. And if you can do it, kudos to you, and maybe we'll talk or something and we can partner. But seriously, the idea is just the beginning. So, thanks very much. And questions?
Thank you, Sam. Anyone have questions?
It was fascinating, Sam, I got to tell you. I don't know you, but I've been investing for over 35 years in companies, and I don't know about accelerators. My question is, when you went there to do this thing with JF, whoever they are, did you pay them? Did they pay you? How did you spend a month there? How did you do all this?
Great question.
People
Sorry, that's like important basic information. What happened is they invested in us. They put $25K in us, and that's it. We don't pay them anything. They don't pay anything. But they do get something, equity. So this is a key topic in here too, right? That's the whole model here. They're getting equity for what they do. They have to get something, right? And they're quite transparent. I really admire it. When we go there, or when we talk to them, they put out there that the equity they take is at a premium. It's higher than what you would give if you were in Silicon Valley. Because the equivalent of this in Silicon Valley is like Y Combinator or 500 startups. So here we're talking like as much as double in terms of the equity they take. So to be specific, we gave up about 12%, which is a lot for this early stage. Where does that come from? These guys have become quite disciplined in the way they do it. It used to be more loosey-goosey and negotiated. But if you get in this program, they have like a table, and they have a very clear set of criteria. So it's based on the amount of traction that you have upon the day that you get accepted. So if I have an idea and I've done nothing, it's just an idea, that's not going to be much valuation. So that translates to they're going to get a lot of equity because they're going to have to do a lot of work to turn me into a real company. But if I walk in there with I have X number, thousands of customers, or I have several hundred customer interviews that validate my idea, or revenue. Each of these kinds of things incrementally increases my valuation, which decreases the equity they will take.
Right. I mean, they're taking a huge amount of risk out of the learning the new company's process. And it seems to me, I mean, you said they only invested in 60 companies for $4 million, only $4 million?
Yeah, from that video. I mean, that was before our batch, but yeah.
So for $25,000, they're getting interest in 60 companies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an incredible deal. I think that's an expensive deal for you.
Yes, it is.
And so how has it turned out for you? How much have you raised everything? Is it all over?
No, so I'll be very transparent about that. We haven't raised yet, and most teams, it's not like you pop out, you do demo day, and you get your deal. Typically, there's some time before you do get your raise. Right now, we look like we seem to be really close. We actually have we have more than 3 VCs who are in a very serious due diligence mode, and it looks quite hopeful. But I don't know yet, so we don't have it yet. And we came out of this program in July, right, to give you some idea of the time that's passed. There's an additional factor. There's a little bit of minutia, but I think important here. One of the driving forces for this and the funding that you see, when you see that funded stamp, my understanding is that some of that is driven by a subsidy, so to speak, or support from the Singapore government. There's a program called the NRF Fund and TIS funds, where the Singapore government will help when some of these VCs invest in companies. And what they do is it's kind of like a leverage thing. Basically, let's say you're a VC and you're going to invest in me, and if I happen to be aligned with what the Singapore government wants, they'll put in, let's say, 500K, and you put in 80K, right? And at some time in the future, like 2-3 years or something, there's sort of a trigger point, and if things look attractive, they work out well for you, you can buy back. You can put in the money that you would have put in the beginning, but the government put in for you, right? So they're helping you out with the cash flow. You don't have to do the layout of cash immediately. So it's sort of a leveraging thing. So that helped accelerate some of the investment activity, supposedly, that happened before us. Right around the time that we got in, we've heard that some of the criteria for this has gotten more stringent. Criteria being things like needs to be based on Singapore R&D, for example, something from the university, or you have to be physically based in Singapore, which we are not. So this may be a factor and something to consider for taking this type of path.
Do you think they're going to help you with the term sheet as well? I mean, are they going to be on your side, you think, on the negotiations with the investors?
Of course, this is still it can only be a speculative answer since it hasn't happened. But yes, I think so, because I mean they have to gain. We're on the same side because they have to exit, right? They're going to get value out of the thing, just as with any VC or investor. Their end game is the exit. So if things don't work well for us for some reason, and we drop out, we don't keep going, and they really lose. So it's in their best interest to help deals happen that are going to keep us in there and make us happy.
And did you guys incorporate in Singapore and then incorporate it in Thailand as a branch office, or how did that happen?
We incorporated in Singapore, and we haven't created the entity here yet. We're in the process of that. And also there's some other details with the BOI and other things. The way it's supposed to happen, as has been suggested to me at least, is this becomes like a cost center. And you just sort of feed the revenues back up into the mother company over in Singapore.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great presentation.
Thanks.
I have one question, Sam. Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. How long have they been doing this? How long have they been in existence?
I forget exactly. I think it's something like 2.5 years, something like that.
I mean, it seems like they have a very well-defined process from your description.
Yes.
You only presented Singapore. Years ago, I compared Singapore with Hong Kong, and I clearly found that Hong Kong is more flexible, less bureaucratic. I talked on Monday with the president of the Singaporean Chamber of Commerce, and he was very negative for startups in Singapore. And he gave an example of somebody who manufactures e-guitars. And I assume, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the majority of those startup candidates in the classroom there are internet companies. not in the manufacturing process, because the e-guitars now are manufactured in China, and they do only the marketing in Singapore. Certain things you cannot do in Singapore. So your business, I think, fits. Not every business fits in Singapore, because offices are very expensive, space is very expensive. What do you think?
First, our colleagues and our cohorts, yeah, they were all internet, software, that kind of thing, technology. Within that space, there's already even a question between software and hardware. The answer is there is hardware there for sure, and that's actually kind of there's a resurgence of hardware these days. Think of things like the wearables and things that you see on Kickstarter. But more back to the nature of your question, if you get to more purely offline business or manufacturing intensive or non-tech, yeah, I think that gets more and more out of the realm. One really nice way they coached us on this stuff when we arrived is they wanted to make clear to us that we're supposed to be IDEs as opposed to an SME. And what that means, and they said, you can be an SME and become very successful and grow like crazy, but an IDE is something that's supposed to be scalable. This is something that's in the radar of a VC, because a VC needs to invest in something that can go regional and grow very, very quickly. I know this is a little bit askew of your question, but it's still kind of partly related, so I'm just adding that in there.
No. You answered my key question.
Okay.
Basically, you have to be in the internet business when you want to go to Singapore.
Technology and high growth. Typically, I hear more software, but there are those who do hardware as well. Yes. And one other thing is I can give an example, partially related. There's a team that went before us called Vault Dragon, and they have a significant offline component. What they do is, let's say when we want to move from one home to another or from an apartment, the whole process of having people come and get our stuff, putting it in storage, some of it in storage, and managing where it is in storage if you have a significant amount of stuff, that's quite a pain point. So this thing that they developed was like a thing, something on the internet, and you can have people get the things and they'll catalog it and make it easily accessible. It's almost like putting things in Dropbox. So here's my piece of furniture. I'm going to drag and drop it in a Dropbox. It's really sitting in some storage area, and I can retrieve it easily because of this whole system. So I'm only saying this to make sure I represent that there are some things that are more operationally intensive, but still you can see clearly that's still got a lot of technology and software component to it. So I still think you're correct.
Any more questions? Can you use the mic? Thank you.
So may I ask your views about the e-commerce market in Thailand for the next few years, especially in terms of marketing? So what are the tools that you would like to, so you have some suggestions on how to promote the e-commerce website, or is there any black holes that we should aware of?
Interesting. Yeah, sure. I can speak to that for sure. So the kind of first top level generic answer is there's the main channels out there are things like Google, and Google splits into AdWords, that's like paid advertising, and there's search engine optimization, which is non-paid, but you still have to do something to become searchable. Facebook, there's even LinkedIn, and there's some other advertising channels, and then there's sort of banner advertising. And then there's the non-paid stuff like social media marketing, content marketing. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of stuff, but what I'd like to highlight for you, to be more back to your question, Facebook is incredible. And sometimes you might not realize it, but the magic of Facebook is the targeting. So we do so much of our customer acquisition, user acquisition from Facebook. The whole thing is that when you set up an ad, I can really narrowly like hit the people that I want that I'm targeting for my app. The resolution that you can get, the types of people, there's all these like filters and things that you can tweak at a much finer level of resolution than you can on Google, at least today. And it's just incredibly powerful. And if you take these tools, really important, you must use A/B testing or split testing. The whole idea, and this actually comes from old school marketing as well, which is let's say I have I want to do an ad A and ad B, right? Maybe the picture is different or the messaging is different. So you run those simultaneously, just enough so you can determine which has a higher conversion rate, right? So I run 2 ads, I collect the numbers, and I say, oh, ad B is better, so let's put money in ad B, right? You can split test for the content, for the images, for the messaging, for the target audiences, and if you have discipline in this, you can optimize. So, real life example, we had an app, the one we have now on Google Play. We were spending 34 baht CPI, so 34 baht per install. Okay, that means for each person who downloads my app, I paid 34 baht for that to happen. Through split testing and through just using Facebook, we were able to reduce it down to 9 baht, from 34 to 9. That's a huge improvement. So I really suggest Facebook, and I'm not saying that's the only one. Of course, it depends on your business and the nature of your target audience. But whatever you do, use split testing, A/B testing.
Okay. Anyone? Any questions?
Yeah, I have one more question, a very egoistic question as a teacher. I was just thinking about the teaching model. The contents seem to be very similar like what we are teaching here at SASIN. But the way they teach is certainly more funky. And I think the secret also is the lineup of the teachers. They have a very high credibility because they do it already what you want to do. And I think that's one of the driving forces for that model, because you pay a lot of money for that course, really, yeah, with this equity deal. Right. So you and then this course is just a month, right?
It's 100 days.
For 100 days, what did you say, 25,000?
We received $25,000, and we gave up about 12% equity.
Was this JFDI? Was it owned by a private entity, or was it a part government?
Yeah, I believe there's partners, and one of those partners is the Singaporean government, through, I think, IPL or something like that.
And the motivation, I was thinking, of these teachers. I mean, they are not philanthropists.
No, no,
certainly not.
No,
and they do it basically to get deals.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to achieve shareholder returns. I mean, they are comprised of partners who have invested, and they have to get returns through exits, and if they don't, it doesn't work. So, yeah, it's a business.
You compare quickly the 2 models, SASIN and them.
Oh, wow.
What?
Are you serious?
Just two items for each. What did you like in Singapore better than here?
Dangerous question. I mean, I'm saying that kind of jokingly. I mean, I'm very, very fond of both, and that's not BS. Like, but contrasting them, I'm trying not to fall into just stereotypes. Or like, first of all, I mean, this isn't. It's not so much about teaching, like courses. Right? It's really about coaching. So I compare this more to what we do in a company and in management. Like there's a piece of work there's something that you're working on, and there's this feedback loop, and it's very, very hands-on. And everything centers around this piece of work, right? But in the school, I mean, it's just different, because there are these sort of proxies for what you're learning, and they're all separate. They're not all connected. It's not this one thing that you're building and that keeps growing. So, I mean, just starting from the fundamental of that notion, it's quite different.
They're a mirror image of each other. In the Accelerator, they pay you to come and learn what they want you to learn,
yeah,
so that you deliver what
That's
they want.
true too. Yes,
The opposite.
true, true. Yes.
Question, Sam. Investors invest in people.
Okay, Mark, can you use the mic? Just.
I'm not sure I know how to use it. It's too high tech. So investors invest in people. They don't invest in products first. It's people first. And you're obviously a smart, bright young guy. Tell me what you're doing in 10 years from now.
I want to be doing what these guys are doing. Because I mean, frankly, I'd like to do it right now. I actually think I could do it right now too. But this is quite personal, but honest to you. Like, I'd love to be the guy like you, one of you guys, and doing the investing and grooming people to be successful startups. I actually think I have a bunch of tool sets, partly thanks to these guys, partly thanks to Sasson. I love developing people and growing people. That's partly my motivation even for running this team. It's not about my product, it's about growing my people and teaching. So given that, my end game is more doing that at scale. But the reason I think I need to do this now, and maybe it's self-imposed or something, is I think ideally you have the credibility of the track record. Like if I get STYLHUNT to succeed, at least STYLHUNT, it just looks a lot better than doing an Accelerator or something like that without the track record. But I don't know, I'll have to see. I don't know how that plays out. So, well, I will make it succeed. So back to your question then. This thing is going to take off. We will eventually get our funding or whatever it is we have to do. We will be a major force in e-commerce in Thailand and in the region. And at some point, I'll get it to the point where I can create an organization that can take care of itself. And then I would like to branch off and create more things like this by way of a model, kind of like an accelerator.
So one last question. Do you have a question? No?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I have a question. Yeah. This is not directly about what you're saying, but something you just said it, and you've sort of echoed it various times. Somebody I was hearing a lecture from a couple of months ago said that given the spectrum of local, regional, and global, you should stay away from the regional. The regional is too hard to do because there's too much complexity. If local is not adequate for you, you should go for global. Do you have any thoughts about that?
If local is not adequate?
If your product is, or whatever what you're doing is too big to be just for one, I take local as being one country, then given the complexities of Asia, you should be looking at a global situation, and a regional is too hard to manage. Because with a regional, you're basically put in a position, I mean, his argument was, you basically put in a position of having 5 local things.
I wouldn't even want to put any spin on it.
Okay.
I'd rather say, don't know. I've never put that much thought into that specific question.
Thank you.
Sure.
What's your goal?
My goal and
Local?
Regional.
Regional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because in our value proposition, our whole story is a regional. It's definitely not fully global. It's a quite specific problem in emerging markets, and it's quite pronounced here, and we have proximity here. If we were to go larger than regional, we could go into some select markets outside, like Middle East, maybe Africa, South America.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam.
Okay,
thank you for
Thanks
sharing
very
your
much.
experience.
Thanks.
And yeah, I'd like to wish you all the success. And we would like in 10 years' time you'll be giving us investing in some of these startups. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope so.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, so before we go for pizza and chicken wings, I'd like to just let you know that next month, even though it's towards the end of the year, we have also have a Sundowner. It's on December 17th. And the speaker is Hong Sin Kwek, She's pioneering the crowd funding in Asia. So she's going to be talking about the power to lead in crowdfunding. So it's going to be very interesting. So I hope you can make it next month on Wednesday, December 17th. Thank you very much. So we have pizza and drinks and chicken wings outside. So let's talk further outside. Thank you.